Dr. Amy Pollick.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I'm Dr. Amy Pollick of the Association for Psychological Science. I'm a research psychologist trained at Emory University, where I studied chimpanzee communication. As you might imagine, that background comes in handy in lots of situations.
Could use you here.
I didn't say that, you did. As a member of the ad hoc group for medical research funding, APS supports the recommendation of $30.8 billion for NIH to provide adequate funds for what we all agree is the world's premier health research agency. I want to spend my few minutes talking about the role of behavior in health and the need for NIH research in this area. Thank you for including my more detailed written statement into the record. So many of the nation's health problems, heart disease, diabetes, addiction, HIV, AIDS, mental illness, and many others, have behavior at their core, either as a symptom, a cause, or a way to control a condition. Sometimes changing an unhealthy or risky behavior is the only way to prevent an illness. As with other sciences, behavioral science research and training is spread among many NIH institutes, and for some, it's a core part of their mission. But today I'd like to talk about just one institute to highlight the crucial role that behavior plays in health, and then come back to the need to support this research at the most basic level at a second NIH institute. The National Cancer Institute supports behavioral research in tobacco use, sun protection, and decision-making. But in a more basic science example, studies have shown that chronic stress can actually cause ovarian tumors to grow faster. This work illustrates how behavior can have a very real impact on biology. Unfortunately, as this committee has raised with NIH over several years, there is a growing gap in behavioral science at NIH, and this is affecting our nation's ability to adequately address the kinds of health problems that I've just noted. Let me explain a little bit. The National Institute of General Medical Sciences, NIGMS, the only NIH institute that's congressionally directed to support basic research that's not aimed at a specific disease or disorder, has a statutory mandate to support basic behavioral research. This has become more important as institutes such as mental health now focus on their own illnesses. But NIGMS only marginally supports basic behavioral research. And this is despite the statutory mandate, despite the scientific need for such research, as asserted by the National Academy of Sciences, the Institute of Medicine, NIH's own Blue Ribbon Task Force, and despite strong urging from this committee for many years, led by Mr. Kennedy and Mr. Walsh. The lack of behavioral science at NIGMS is an enormous oversight. There is a huge range of fundamental NIGMS behavioral topics that could then be used in understanding the diseases at other NIH institutes, exactly as general medical sciences research is supposed to be used. We know that genes in the environment interact, and what we learn about that interaction is going to inform us about schizophrenia, obesity, alcoholism, different kinds of cancers, heart disease, and more. Let me use myself as a final example. I was born deaf, and I received a cochlear implant a few years ago. But medical technology alone is not the reason why it's been so successful for me. It's because of basic psychological research on language and auditory processes, both inside and outside of the brain, that makes the implant work as well as it does. And I simply wouldn't be speaking to you today as I am without basic behavioral research. And that's why we're again asking the committee to direct NIGMS to develop a plan for establishing a basic behavioral science research program. This is an alliance that can reap enormous benefits for our nation's public health. So we respectfully ask the committee to request the NIH director to submit a report indicating the structure for scientific leadership for basic behavioral science within NIGMS. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We very much appreciate your coming here today. And let me say to all of you, all of the stories that you have told this morning, we'll tell this afternoon and tomorrow. All of them indicate that what budgeting is about priorities. And he will certainly lay out a picture of what ought to be much higher priority than we've been giving it the last few years. Thank you very much.